Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to my bookcase on this hot-ass July day for the last of my 4 Clarin reviews. This is of Clarin Le Rocher, which is the rock in French, reference to Gospel of Matthew 7, and then later again in 16, with my favorite pun in the Bible. So just looking at this, you can tell it's different from the other 3 that I've looked at so far. I don't know if you can tell on this camera, but this actually has a little bit of a tint to it. It's actually a little bit sort of green yellow, and that's not barrel, right? This is straight off the stills. I don't know what that's from. It's kind of awesome, and I love it. It's not the only thing that's different here, though. So. Well, let me just read you some stats. All right, so this is distilled at Distillery Le Rocher, which is same sort of general region as Sajous, about 10 miles east as the crow flies, up in the north. Distilled by Bethel Romelus, who owns the distillery, in Pignon. This is the 2018 harvest. And then you start to get interesting. Still native yeast, still wild fermentation, but it's distilled from sugarcane syrup, so not cane juice. The syrup is not molasses. They haven't extracted any extra sugar out of it. But they have. But the syrup is made by sort of basically concentrating the cane juice into a storable form. Still pot stills. Right? But if you read on the back, they tell you it's not sort of basically fresh stuff every time. They're actually using a dunder process here. So they're using 30% of the kind of gunk left over from previous distillation, and they're sort of shoveling that into the new mass. So this is so you're getting a little bit of sort of Jamaica style here, but don't think this is like this is exactly like that, right? Because Jamaicans make their rum from molasses still, and this is from, well, not cane juice, but cane syrup. So it's a little bit of a fusion of styles. And you'll notice also they don't tell you what cane varietals are being used here, and it's possible that's just because it's from a kind of field mix, and they don't actually know. But in any case, you're not using molasses, but you are using, still not all the fetters of Jamaica. You're not getting the acid tank. You're not getting the muck, that god awful mass of organic rotting stuff. But you're sort of heading in that direction, right? So let's give this a whirl. This is also comes off as still the weakest strength of the 4 so far. This is 46.9% alcohol. So it's a little bit of a weakling compared to some of the others. But the nature of the distillation should make this more familiar to rum fans, right? At least on paper, right? And you nose this, and it does smell more like a traditional rum. But at the same time, it actually comes across a little bit like a mezcal as well. So almost like a heavy funky pot still rum from, think more Long Pond than Hamden, like more in that sort of industrially funky direction than sort of fruity funky. Imagine that, met like a beautiful Espadin mezcal, and they had a wonderful child. That's kind of what you're getting on the nose here. So on the one hand, you're getting, olives and like heavy minerality. This smells like rocks. There's tons of rock, old tires, like motor oil from like an ancient, 1960s car or something. Like industrial smoke, plastic smoke. A little bit of an herbal note. Like maybe like some fennel, but not as much as with the other Clarins. But then right alongside that, running alongside is this this green pepper note, Also white pepper, but really sort of bell pepper in there, and just little hints of vanilla, and even a little coconut uh, flake in there. And that's not from, again, that's not from oak, right? It's just, but you know, the as since vanilla is something you get in agave spirits, again, that pushes me more in a mezcal direction. But it's all from cane. Um, Beyond that, like again, the kind of like burning hot plastic thing, but nice plastic. Um, Tea, um, maybe. Well, I used Russian Caravan last time, and it's a little bit of that. It's more like just that lighter characteristic, sort of lighter flavored, like Chinese black tea. I'm, my mind is failing me a little bit here, but um, some tobacco, like pipe tobacco, especially like black stove tobacco that has this sort of burn sweet note to it. This actually smells quite sweet. And some artichoke too. Well, so not like cooked or anything. This is raw, artichoke. And on the palate, vegetal, but quite sweet at the same time. Um, um, the leading note I would say is sort of straight cane juice. The Sajous is very close to cane juice, but this is more almost like rock candy. But there's a little hint of funk in there too. We're not deep into funk territory, but we're sort of mid '60s James Brown. You know, haven't hit Sex Machine yet, but we're getting there. There's some olive and bell pepper again on the palate. Like brine, that's a common note. That mineral thing. This again, there's a minerally, rocky, but also like an oily thing. Something about this reminds me of Gewürztraminer, which is a wine from especially like Alsace Gewürztraminer, not the stuff from America, which is too nice and fruity. I'm talking about the heavy, oily, minerally driven Gewürztraminers you get more in sort of northeast France. Um, Something reminded me of less of pipe tobacco, more like the pipes themselves. Like you found someone's old pipe in a cabinet or something. Um, but then there's still that sort of kind of vanilla ice cream note hanging on there. Even a little bit of like steamed milk. You're making hot chocolate and you sort of tried your milk before you added your chocolate in. Um, Very yummy. I mean, this is well. Let's talk about the nature of this right after I add water. Um, so, yeah, one squirt is enough. So, as I said, this is the most atypical of the four mezcals that are available in the U.S. so far. Again, you folks in Europe get Casimir too, but we don't yet. I'll review it as soon as I can. The thing you have to keep in mind is we're trying 4, maybe 5 of these things out of hundreds, right? So, I mean, you have to ask yourself, like, are we getting a representative selection or not? I mean, the importers are fine folks, and God bless them, but I mean, they're choosing these things because they think they can sell them. So the question you have to ask is, well, I mean, is this so uncommon on in Haitian Clarin, or is it just uncommon in this sort of batch? are there other styles running around out there which are just totally different from anything we're getting, but also equally valid? Just we're just not getting yet. And I say this almost there, almost to sort of prep people for the fact that more and more of these are going to start coming to the market as it heats up. And I don't want easy prejudices to start getting dug in about Clarin is supposed to be this, supposed to taste like this, mixes like this, and so on and so on and so on. There's always going to be tons of regional styles, and we don't. I mean, as money starts to from the international market starts to flow into Haiti and the Clarin makers, on the one hand, so people might improve their styles in order to attract a market, but if they have a style that's just not matching what the American palate thinks Clarin should be, suddenly that style is going to start to drop off real hard. Unless consumers are willing to keep an open mind, unless they're willing to sort of say, hey, maybe not all Clarin should have these sort of olivey, seawatery, floral, herbal character that I associate with Sajous or whatever. Let's the business is if mezcal's any indication, the business it should be very good news for a lot of the folks in these regions. But at the same time, the very fact that there's more business is going to affect the nature of the market. And make your buying decisions and adjust your expectations based on the fact that you don't know what's there yet. So have maybe a little bit of epistemic humility, and it will maybe assist in your palate too. So let's go back to this. I will try it now, brought down a little bit, and give it a final grade. Much the same. It gets more peppery, actually. There's a fruitiness that comes out, like a stone fruit kind of thing, maybe a little hint of peach, like more like peach skin than the fruit itself. Lychee fruit, maybe a little hint of pear in there. Almost like a clay thing, like a river clay, the stuff you would use in like a ceramics workshop. And on the palate, sweetens up, but also gets more spicy. The black pepper comes on hard. There's also a little bit more of a fennel note. Cardamom, maybe a little bit of eucalyptus in there, some spearmint. Just one more time to check. Yeah. This has a delicious factor to it, which cannot be denied. And in a way, I do think this is the easiest way in for people coming from. This is the easy Clarin, let's put it that way, for people coming in from either rum or mezcal. But on the other hand, it's not necessarily going to lead you into the other Clarins because it is so different in style. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. But it's very, very well made. Very delicious. I'm going to give this 87 points. It's fun. It's terrific. This is, I mean, the Merlot is maybe a better lead into the other Clarins, but I mean, this is in a way that's maybe the most marketable of the four. Okay, so that's kind of my last word on this. Any last words on Clarins as in general, as for where we are today? Where are we going with this? What's happening? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know where the market's going any more than anyone else. My expectation would be that these things are going to get big. Maybe not as big as mezcal, because I don't think the character of them is quite as sexy to the American palate as that sort of mix of kind of natural sweetness with smoke that mezcal often is naturally or in sort of constructed fashion bringing to the table. But the quality's there. I mean, these are extremely good spirits. So one thing I would expect to see is just people coming from mezcal, because mezcal's really expensive right now. It kind of started off really expensive. The Del Maguey range, even back in the day, I remember people being really curious about it and really impressed with it, but also kind of gawking at the price points, going, what are we supposed to do with this? These are coming in at $40 around that range. So it's a much more modest investment. So in a way, I wonder, especially combined with the fact that mezcal has already sort of broken the ceiling for unaged spirits, if these will come on harder and faster than mezcal did. But maybe they won't have quite the ceiling because of that sort of, they don't necessarily have, generally the ones I've tried, they don't necessarily have that immediate commercial attractiveness. Put it that way. This is good stuff. With mezcal, what we saw was the nerds got into it first. The nerds immediately saw, what was worth trying there, and then the sort of press and the sort of mixology nerds kind of followed from there. And then it was the folks manning the shelves in the liquor shops who actually had to convince people to buy this stuff. And it was sort of the general masses, the randos, and then the sort of big Diageos of the world followed with their sort of 40%, mezcals, which are constructed to be, to fit the expectations of the palate, but at the same time be smooth and nice and unthreatening. Where are we with Clarin? The nerds are excited. Press is starting to come in. I think the mixologists are starting to get interested, but it hasn't started to filter all the way through. And I'll be curious to see in the next few years, as more of these things roll in, and as people start to notice them, where things will go. But I'm expecting, far more interest. And $40. I mean, what does $40 get you in mezcal or malts these days? It's worth your money, and I would encourage you to give them a shot. And that's all I got. Thank you for watching, and cheers.